this month's Learning Lab. So this is the NACAC Rural and Small Town SIG. And this month, we're super excited to be partnering with both the Common App as well as the AXS Companion Toolkit. I'm so excited to get to share these resources with you at our Making College Possible with Common App. So thanks everyone for being here. I just wanted to share a few things before we hand it over to our wonderful presenter. So just to give kind of an agenda of what this hour will look like, I just wanted to kick it off with some welcome and introductions, and then we'll be handing it off to our partner at Common App, Michaela, who will be talking about the different initiatives that Common App has instituted to keep making college more accessible for everyone. And after that, we have another great team of partners here to show us the AXS Companion and Toolbox. So they're actually just going to be demoing it for us today, and then they're going to come back later in August for a full deep dive into all of the resources that they have to help students complete the Common App. And we'll also make sure that we have time for some Q&A as well at the end of the session. A few things just to know about this meeting is we are in a webinar mode. So that means as an attendee, your video is not on, you're completely muted. So you don't have to worry about that. This meeting will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube playlist as well. So we'll make sure everyone who registered gets access to it. And then if you do have questions, there's a little Q&A on your Zoom that you'll be able to submit any questions to our panelists. But you can also use the chat if you want to share, where you're tuning in from, or any, follow-ups or sentiments that you have as our panelists are presenting today. And now I just wanted to take a quick moment to introduce both our speakers and our full team here in the call. So just to introduce myself, my name is Megan Roberts. I work full-time at the University of Michigan, leading a scholarship program for students from rural Michigan, and I'm one of the co-leaders of the SIG. I'll also invite my co-leader to go ahead and introduce herself. Kim?
Hi, I'm Kim Jackson. I'm the Director of Advising and Scholarship Support for the Lemfest Scholars Foundation. We help students in South Central Pennsylvania get to and through college.
Awesome. And then why don't we hand it over to Michaela?
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela Alcorn, and I work at Common App as the Manager of Counselor Engagement, and I'm really excited to get to share some information with you as well.
And then it was just brought to my attention that our chat was turned off, but it is on now. So if anyone did want to jump in the chat and introduce, where you're tuning in from, please feel free to chime in as we're doing introductions too. But Marilyn? We can't hear you just yet, Marilyn.
Sorry, thank you for reminding me to turn that on. I'm Marilyn O'Toole. I'm in Los Angeles, California. I'm here with Ann Holmdahl. We worked diligently on the AXS Companion and the AXS Toolbox to increase accessibility for students, especially in the under-resourced communities. But that's our goal, and I'm so happy to be here today with Michaela.
And Ann?
Oh, hi, I'm Ann Holmdahl. I'm in the Seattle, Washington area, and also work with kids in rural Eastern Washington up in Ferry County. That's how I came into this special interest group, and brought Marilyn along to show us and teach us about the AXS Companion. Glad to be here.
And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and pause my screen and we'll hand it over to Michaela.
Awesome. All right, I will try to share my screen. Hopefully technology is on my side today. All right. Perfect. Give it just a second to load here. Perfect. Hopefully y'all are able to see that on your end too. I also want to start by saying, I know I introduced myself, Michaela from Common App, work with the counselor community through Common App. But I also want to share that I come from a rural town in Texas. I think I saw in the chat that there's someone joining from West Texas. I grew up in East Texas, from Lufkin, Texas. And so being able to be here today with the Rural SIG and being part of this, this kind of network, I'm really proud to come from kind of a small town. And I know some of those challenges that are faced in in accessing and kind of navigating the college search process as a rural student. So anyway, I just want to say that I'm very grateful to be here and to get to share some information with you today about Common App. We're going to go through content fairly quickly because I do want to leave plenty of time for questions and also for my AXS Companion colleague to be able to share some information too. So we're going to dive in right away and just get started. And like I said, hopefully there will be plenty of time at the end for questions you have for me. So this is our roadmap for today. I do want to focus mostly on the equity initiatives that Common App has been initiating recently, but I also do want to talk about just generally who Common App is, what the application process looks like for students, recognizing that those joining the call might have varying levels of experience with Common App. So just some level setting, and then I will share some information about those equity initiatives, some great tools and resources, and then definitely time for questions that will come up as well. So first things first, I did want to do a little poll to see where people are joining from. I know some folks are putting that in the chat, but I do have Slido here as well. If you're not familiar with Slido, you can pull out your phone and scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com, type in that number on the screen, and let me know where you're joining us from today. Like I said, I saw someone in the chat from Texas, but I am curious where people are joining from. West Lafayette, Indiana, great. Welcome to the session. Ann Arbor, Michigan, Georgia, Vermont, Boston. I'm in San Antonio, Texas right now. That's where I'm joining you from. Ithaca, New York, great. Grand Rapids, Michigan, Morris, Pennsylvania, Tacoma, Irving. I see another Texan in there, exciting. Illinois. This is great. We've got people from all over. This is wonderful. A lot from Vermont, though. That seems to be maybe the winner of this session today. That's great. Awesome. Well, I just wanted to get a sense of where everyone was joining from, so thank you for participating in that. Oh, I see we have a Dallas person in the room. I've got family in the Dallas area. I will be using Slido throughout the session just to kind of get a sense of the room and who's here. So definitely keep Slido pulled up. But thank you for sharing where you're from, and now we'll just dive right in. All right, so again, the level setting of meeting Common App. I recognize that many of you might be very familiar with Common App, but there might be some folks who are kind of newer to knowing more about Common App. So just level setting a bit. But Common App is an online college application platform. Every year, more than 1 million students, and about a third of those students are actually first-generation students, are applying to college using our platform. And we are really trying to streamline this process where hopefully students only need maybe just one account to apply to many colleges, as opposed to having many different accounts and having to navigating lots of different logins. So just trying to simplify and streamline that process for students. So here is our mission and vision statement. We are a membership organization. So colleges that are part of Common App are considered members of Common App. And together we have a mission to be committed to the pursuit of access, equity, and integrity in the college admissions process, with our vision to be the trusted source to access, afford, and attain opportunity for all. These are really beautiful words that essentially are getting at we are trying to be more than just a college application platform. Yes, we are a tool to connect students to those post-secondary opportunities, but we want to be more than that. We want to provide counseling resources and access to scholarship and financial aid information. So trying to be more than just that tool for students. This is a timeline that kind of captures the evolution of Common App. It might surprise some people to know that we were founded in 1975 with just 15 institutions. And today we have over 1,000 colleges that are part of Common App. So we've been around for quite a while, but in particular, I would say the past 5 to 10 years, we've seen pretty exponential growth and membership. And with that growth in membership, so has kind of the demographic of our membership shifted. This is a snapshot of what our membership looks like now. Again, over 1,000 colleges that are part of Common App. It's a mix of public and private members. We're in all 50 US states, including DC and Puerto Rico. And we have close to 60 international members in almost 20 different countries. So we have quite a breadth and depth of college options for students to explore through our platform. I also think it's interesting to note which colleges are free for students to apply to, which is why I have that stat in the top right corner. Right now, roughly half of the colleges that are part of Common App do not charge an application fee. So it's free for students to apply. And here's another snapshot, particularly of our applicant pool. This is from this year as of May 1st, so some things might change ever so slightly. But this year we've seen close to 1.4 million applicants submit about 9.4 million applications through Common App. And these students come from over 200 countries and territories. Roughly 12% of those students are international students. And you can see some of those top states and some top countries where students are using Common App to apply for post-secondary opportunities. So again, just to give you a sense of the scale and scope of students that are using the platform. So now that I've kind of grounded us in who Common App is and who's using it, I'm going to talk a little bit about the application itself. Again, knowing that many of you might have been in the application before or supported students through the application, just to kind of give you a general sense of what students will see when they're in the application itself. So every student's journey will start here at commonapp.org. This is where they'll go to either create an account if it's their first time accessing it, or where they can log into an existing account. And once they're logged into their Common App account, this is what they'll see. The Common App application kind of consists of these 5 different tabs that you'll see on the screen, and I'll go through each of those pretty quickly. The first is the dashboard. The dashboard is like a snapshot of a student's college list, the deadlines that are coming up, just a general snapshot of what they're looking at. The My Colleges tab is where students will go to answer college-specific questions, invite their recommenders and complete FERPA, and ultimately submit their applications. The Common App tab is the main section of the application. This is a section where students only have to answer these questions once, and their responses are sent to all of the colleges that they apply to through Common App. So again, with that streamlining, trying to simplify that part of the process. The College Search tab is where students can look up different colleges by various search criteria and add them to their college list. And then that last tab is the Financial Aid tab, which connects students to scholarship opportunities, but also provides information about the financial aid process as a whole. So that's essentially what students are seeing when they are logged into the application. And throughout, there are helpful like bubbles that will pop up with frequently asked questions or little tips and tidbits to help students as they are completing each section of the application. Now, in terms of testing, students can, of course, self-report their test scores through Common App, and they can even choose which colleges that they want to share those test scores with. I think this is particularly important, given the kind of environment we have right now with test optional, kind of being up in the air and things shifting and changing, that students really do have a lot of autonomy here to report their scores and choose which colleges they want to see those scores. Now, this can change in the next year. I'm not really sure exactly what this will look like, but for this past year, about 1,000 of our colleges did not require ACT or SAT test scores for admission purposes. So of course that can change year to year, but that's a kind of a snapshot of what it looked like this year. In terms of the writing section, we know this is where we get a lot of questions from students. I think in particular this year, students feeling confident to share their story through the essay. We got a lot of comments and questions about that. But just know that for next year, the essay prompts are going to remain the same. If you're kind of curious about the breakdown of how students have answered the essay prompt question, we have that here, as well as a lot of resources to support students as they're navigating that writing section of the application. The activity section is another area where we get quite a few questions from the counseling community, from students. How do I navigate this particular section? How do I share those activities and experiences that I've had throughout high school? And so I wanted to show you a snapshot of what that question looks like in the application as well, where students can report up to 10 different activities they've been involved in. And I like to think of activities more broad, more like experiences that students have had, which would include, of course, clubs and sports and hobbies, but could also include family responsibilities or having a job. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit more when we talk about our equity initiatives. There's a particular pilot that we've had related to that piece of the puzzle that I'll elaborate on a little bit later. But again, this is what that question looks like in the application as students are sharing more about their life outside of the classroom with the colleges they're applying to. I also wanted to talk about the fee waiver component of the application. I mentioned that about half of our colleges do not charge an application fee, but that of course means that about half of our member colleges do charge an application fee. And so I wanted to talk about the fee waiver question in the application, which again, we hoped was going to streamline this process for students who do have a fee waiver or are eligible for a fee waiver. So this is what the question looks like. It is in the Common App tab, so that main section of the application. It lists out all of the different eligibility criteria that would qualify a student for a fee waiver. And all a student has to do is say yes, sign their name, and then they have the fee waiver for the colleges that they're applying to through Common App. So again, just really trying to streamline that for students and also for counselors as well. Now, one of the last things I want to talk about here is the My Colleges tab, especially as it relates to the recommenders and FERPA side of things, knowing that there are probably quite a few counselors on this call. In the My Colleges tab, this is again where students will answer college-specific questions. It's also where they're going to complete the FERPA and well, they're going to invite and assign recommenders. So whether you're a counselor or a teacher or an advisor, this is where students will be able to invite you into our recommender system so that you can be a recommender for them. And again, ultimately, this is where students will submit their applications. If you have been invited as a recommender, these are the 4 different recommender types that we support through Common App. The first is the counselor role. This is someone who is going to complete those school forms for a student. So a student will only invite one person as their counselor. They'll submit the academic record, so the transcript, and potentially a letter of recommendation if it's required by the colleges that student is applying to. We have the teacher recommender type, again, someone who is teaching a student in an academic capacity who's going to be writing a letter of recommendation or an evaluation for a student if required. We have the other recommender role, which is more encompassing of outside of the counselor or teacher, other types of recommenders that might be invited, like a college access counselor or an arts teacher or a coach, someone else that a student might invite to submit an evaluation on their behalf that doesn't quite fit in that counselor or teacher role. And then the final recommender type is the advisor role. Students can invite up to 3 advisors to kind of support them through application completion. Advisors do not submit any school forms. They're not submitting transcripts or letters of recommendation or anything like that. They really are there to support students as they're completing their applications. And you might be logged into multiple roles for a particular student through our platform, and that is totally fine. When the student invites you, you'll just be notified through email, log into our recommender system, and see all the different functionality there that I'll talk about later. Now, if you are at a school or part of a district that is using one of these college and career readiness platforms, you would be doing all of the form submission and tracking through these systems and not through our recommender system. So I just wanted to bring awareness to that as well, that if your school is using one of these platforms, that's how you would do the form submission and track applications that way. Okay. So now I want to get into the meat of this presentation here, the equity initiatives. I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about where Common App is coming from, the big moonshot that we've recently launched, and then some of the equity initiatives associated with that kind of 5-year strategy that we've outlined. Before I do so, I am curious from the audience here, what barriers do you see your students facing as they are looking at post-secondary opportunities? This could be anything like financial aid or navigating the application or application fees. What are those particular things that you are seeing are barriers for students as they're applying? And hopefully we'll be able to touch on some of this as I unpack those equity initiatives. Yeah, financial aid, especially this year, that's been a huge one. Cost, yes, financial concerns, it's a huge part of it. Quality of college counseling and maybe access to resources, to go off of that just a little bit. Guidance. Deadlines, definitely. Oh, and then with the 20 college limit, feeling like they have to apply to all 20 potentially. Oh, I love this one, higher ed jargon. That is so true. The words that we use that feel so natural, but for a student who's never seen this process before can feel really alienating. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing this. And of course, financial aid is a huge one, and we will talk about some of those initiatives with financial aid as well. So thank you for sharing that feedback. So I do want to talk a little bit about Common App's evolution and how that plays into the equity initiatives that we've seen. Again, we were founded in 1975. We had those 15 colleges. We've changed a lot since then. And now we have over 1,000 colleges and universities and many more students using the platform. And with that, we've seen some real shifts in the demographics of students that have been using Common App. We've seen an increase in first-gen students, an increase in underrepresented students. But in particular, we started to see an increase in students from below the median household income. And even though we've seen that increase and we've seen those students using Common App more and more, our data has shown that low income applicants are still significantly underrepresented in our applicant pool. And we knew that we needed to do some things different to reach that demographic of students and to support them as they're exploring post-secondary opportunities. So with that in mind, Common App launched our moonshot really in this past year. It's really our just big goal that we have, which is that by 2030, we will close our equity gap in students pursuing post-secondary opportunities. This is what we're calling our next chapter. This is what our next several years are really going to be focused on, is closing our equity gap. And where we've seen the biggest gap is in, again, those low income students accessing the application. And that's really what we're going to focus on. And to get there, we know it's going to take more than 650,000 additional students from below that median household income level to close that gap. And we know that by focusing on this population of students, we're also going to be supporting students from a lot of different backgrounds, from different racial ethnic backgrounds. We're going to get urban students, rural students, students from a lot of different identities that they hold by focusing particularly on students from below the median household income level. And that's the federal definition of that, by the way. So that's big. That's a really bold goal, and we are aware of that. So how are we going to get there? What is Common App going to do to meet that really bold goal that we have to close our equity gap? So this is sort of our roadmap to get there. We are in a really unique position as an organization to have a ton of data. So using that data, using the relationships that we have, creating innovative solutions with that data. So really that's going to be one of the biggest parts, is using the plethora of data that we have to our advantage, tracking trends and seeing what we can do with that information. The second part is delivering a reimagined admissions process. Essentially what we're going to be talking about there is direct admissions, and I will share more information about our direct admissions program. The third part is connecting students with financial aid opportunities. We saw it in the poll just a moment ago. Financial aid, cost, affordability, that is one of the biggest barriers for students. So what can Common App do in this space and place to support students? And then the last piece is, how do we partner with members and other partners to help them pursue equity in their own practice? So those are kind of the different components of our roadmap to get there. We also just released our second of these equity and admissions reports. I'm happy to share those with everyone afterwards. I'm also happy to share these slides out afterwards so that you have access to all of the links that I've mentioned. But if you're curious about what the moonshot looks like for us, some of the ways that we've tracked progress with even the past year, some of those initiatives that we have ongoing in more detail, the Equity and Admissions Report is a great place to start. And we actually have 2 volumes of that out now if you want to unpack that more. And again, I'll share that with you after the session. So these are some of the initiatives that have really come out of this big goal, like how we're going to get there. So the first is our direct admissions initiative. Direct admissions is really us flipping the script on college admissions. Instead of a student going to a college and saying, hey, will you admit me? It's the college going to the student and saying, you've already been admitted. All you have to do is apply. This was our third year of a pilot for direct admissions. We've seen some really promising results from that program so far, just really flipping that script and giving students more confidence in applying to different college opportunities. And so that's our direct admissions program. We're expecting it to grow even more in this next year. So definitely keep an eye out as we release more reports on the success of that program. Mobile app is going to sound kind of silly, but being able to meet students where they're at, whether it be on a browser, a tablet, an iPad, a phone, just making sure that wherever a student is, that they have access to the application and that they can complete it, again, regardless of what system that they're using. So that was a really big development just a couple of years ago. We've really stepped into the scholarships and affordability space. This has been a really big push in particular this past year, but how do we connect students through scholarships more directly? How do we start having conversations related to affordability? So we partnered with Scholarship America. We're doing in-app scholarship matching for students so they can see what opportunities might be available in terms of scholarships. We also partnered with Benefits Data Trust this year, who released the Wyatt tool, which is a really helpful chat box for students completing the FAFSA. And we partnered with You Aspire to do a webinar series related to the FAFSA changes and even how to unpack financial aid award letters. So we really dove into this space quite a bit in this past year. In terms of minority serving institutions, or just kind of changing or being more intentional about recruiting more MSIs to the Common App platform, this has been an initiative really since about 2021 or so, when we looked at the demographic breakdown of our institutions and found that MSIs were really underreported in our membership. So we became very intentional about reaching out to MSIs and getting them onto the platform. And so since then, I think we started with about 84 MSIs back in 2021, and now we're close to like 150 or so MSIs. We know that by having a more diverse group of colleges on the platform, that we're going to be better serving all students by having that. And then the last thing here that I want to talk about is our student context inventory. This is the pilot that I mentioned earlier related to the activities section. We've been piloting a particular question with some of our colleges, so not all colleges, but piloting a question that asks students if they're spending a certain amount of time outside of the classroom doing various things like translating for family members, taking care of sick and ailing family members, having a job, different things like that, and having students answer it in an easy checkbox question to allow them to have an easier way to share that information about what they're doing outside of the classroom that really impacts who they are as a student, especially things that tended to be underreported, like students really weren't reporting that, particularly in the activity section. So how can we give students a platform and a place to be able to report that they have been spending a lot of time doing those different things? So we've been piloting that, and we have seen that students, when they see that question, are answering it and that they are reporting different activities there. So more to come on how that pilot is going. But again, just giving students more of the autonomy to share their story through the Common App platform. So I know I rapid fire went through each of those initiatives, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions about them, but I'm going to leave it just there for right now so that I can kind of share more tools and resources and get to questions at the end. So that's just a snapshot of that moonshot and some of the initiatives that have come from that. If you are wanting to learn a little bit more, we do have a great website about our next chapter work, and that would include some of those equity and admissions briefs that I mentioned. So you can definitely go to that website and find more information there too. All right, so my last piece that I'm going to get through and then pass it off to my friends with the AXS Companion tool is I did want to share some advising tools and resources with you. The first shameless plug is we do have a couple of webinars coming up. Actually, the first one is tomorrow, and then we have another one on May 29th. These are our webinars that share information about what's coming down the pipeline for next year with Common App, in particular as we relaunch the application. So if you're curious about those changes and what you might see as you're supporting students, you can sign up for our webinars. The two different dates are really just to allow flexibility for time zones and for availability, but the content will be the same in both sessions, and we'll share the recordings as well. But if you are curious about next year, you can sign up for those webinars. I also wanted to highlight our account rollover. And so we do relaunch our application every year on August 1st, but students actually don't have to wait until August 1st to create their accounts. If you're working with juniors or sophomores or freshmen and you want to get them introduced to the Common App platform, they can create their accounts at any time. And then they would take advantage of our account rollover, which means year to year as we relaunch the application, their account would roll over. Their username and password would remain the same. So would anything in the Common App tab if they started answering those questions or added colleges to their list, that will roll over year to year. The one word of caution is that anything in the My Colleges tab will not roll over. So if you are working with students who aren't quite ready to apply just yet before August 1st, maybe make sure they're not answering those questions. They can look at them. They can even start answering them in a separate document, but just make sure they're not answering them in the application because they would lose that data. So just as a heads up, we are closing the first year application on July 28th, and then again, relaunching on August 1st. Maybe many of you already know this, but if not, as an advisor, you can actually create a practice student account. I find this to be incredibly helpful to be able to see what students are seeing when they're logged into the application. You can play around, answer questions, and see exactly what it looks like for students. And so all you have to do is go to commonapp.org, create your account, and select Education Professional. And this will allow you to have access to a practice account. So I think it's a really helpful starting point. Make sure when you're creating a practice student account that you use either a personal email or a throwaway email account and not whatever professional email account you're using, especially if students are inviting you as a recommender. You want to make sure that this account is separate from whatever email you use with our recommender system. Speaking of a recommender system, if you are invited as a counselor or a teacher or an other recommender advisor through our system, this is what you'll see when you're logged into our recommender system. And I did want to highlight at least some of the resources you have when you are in this system, because you have a lot of functionality here. You can download your data from here. You can track student progress. You can search for cohorts of students and even access our requirements grid. And perhaps one of the most important parts, not the most, but one of them, is you can even preview in progress applications. So if a student has enabled that permission, you can actually see their application, maybe provide suggestions or feedback if requested. So a lot of power and functionality you have in this system. And I did want to talk about school forms just a little bit in case we do have counselors and recommenders on the call that are submitting school forms for students that we use at Common App, what we call single submission or one and done, to try to streamline the process of submitting school forms for counselors. Essentially what that means is you only have to upload a form for a student one time, and it will get sent to all of the colleges they ultimately apply to. So if you have a student and you upload a letter of recommendation for them once, you only have to do it once and it will get sent to all of the colleges. We've also been releasing some new resources about school profiles. This has been a really big topic of conversation. How do you provide context to colleges about your particular school and school environment? We know many people have school profiles, and also some schools don't, or don't know where to start on creating a successful school profile. So we have some great resources here through Common App, through NACAC, and then we are about to publish a Common App resource on school profiles, hopefully in the next few weeks. So definitely keep an eye out for that as well. You also have the power to request a Common App map totally for free. These are huge poster-sized maps you can put in a classroom or an office space so students can visually see where all of these different Common App colleges are. So you can request that at commonapp.org/map, and we'll send that directly to you. And kind of going off of where all of the different colleges are, we have a really robust Explore Colleges page that can be a great starting point for students or even for yourself to look at all of the different college options that students have through Common App. You can filter by different criteria like test optional or campus size, or if they offer merit aid. But you can also look at tours and maps and visuals to get a real sense of these different colleges before students actually apply. We also have a really great bank of website resources, checklist for students. We have recommender guides, including how to write effective letters of recommendation. We have Common App Ready, which is kind of a series and toolkit of different resources to help students walk through different components of the application. And we have a monthly counselor newsletter. Another shameless plug, if you're not signed up, to please sign up for our newsletter. I promise we won't spam you. We send one email a month that's a great digest of any important changes, deadlines that are coming up, and even just events that are coming down the pipeline. We also have great video tutorials too if you're working with students. I think having different types of media to talk about the application is really helpful. And these have been very well received. They're all less than 5 minutes, so very brief snapshots, and could be a really great tool to use when working with students and helping them unpack different components of the application. And all students who use Common App have access to UStrive mentorship through the application. UStrive used to be known as Strive for College, if you're familiar with them, provide free virtual mentorship for students through Common App. So students, regardless of fee waiver status, can sign up to get access to a UStrive mentor to help them with various components of the application process, and even what it's like to transition to college and what happens afterwards too. So again, all students have access to this mentorship through Common App. And we did partner with Reach Higher, which is Michelle Obama, former First Lady Michelle Obama's initiative in the White House, which is really about encouraging students to pursue post-secondary opportunities. Reach Higher did join Common App officially a few years ago, and they're actually celebrating their 10-year anniversary this year. I think about Reach Higher very much as like the student-facing side of Common App in a lot of ways, and really engaging students in the process through different events and social media and things like that. And one resource that came out of that partnership with Reach Higher is our Pathfinder resource, which really walks students through the application process from the research stage to the actual application stage to deciding where they're going to go. And it's really thinking through the lens of finding the right college fit. This is a great conversation starter for students, and they can access this online for free in Spanish and in English through the QR code and through the links. And again, I'll share these out afterwards. And one of the last things I want to share is we are available 24/7, 365 through our Solutions Center. There's always someone around to help, regardless of time zones, regardless if your students are completing their applications in the middle of the night. I know we hope that they're not, but sometimes that happens. We do have a Solutions Center there to support students and our recommenders with frequently asked questions and known issues, and even the ability to chat with a member of our Solutions Center and get answers to any issues that they might be having. We are on social media. You can definitely follow us there for any updates. And we do member shout outs and plug different webinars and things like that there. I was going to do one final poll, but I really do want to make sure my companion from the AXS Companion has time to talk about their resource. So I'm going to skip past this right now. And then that way we have plenty of time to talk about the AXS Companion and get to your questions. So thank you so much. I know that was very rapid fire to go through all of that content. I'm sure there are many questions, but let me go ahead and pass it over to the AXS Companion team. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michaela. That was wonderful. And thank you for sharing your screen. I love that you have the AXS Companion photograph there with Tim Brunel, the Dean of Admissions at University of Southern California. Thank you, everyone. And I want to actually thank you, Megan, for allowing me to introducing me and allowing me to be here today. Everyone at the, I'm going to share my screen now. But I actually kind of love this screen that you have, but thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Everyone within my educational consulting community, the independent educational consulting community, loves Common App. We love all that you provide, and you create access for students. I don't know what we would do or where we would be without it. So thank you for all the work that you've done to increase accessibility for students. When we started working on the AXS Companion, as a little bit of a background, it was because we saw our students who we were working with asking us so many questions. And our goal was to create a replica of ourselves answering the questions and walking students through Common App as we walk our students through Common App. And so we collectively added, we had about 20 people on the committee. We worked with Common App as we put together our content. And we had 5 people edit each set of curriculum of each question, of each section of Common App. And we found out that what we thought would be maybe 6 or 7 videos that we'd like to share with the under-resourced community for the kids who didn't have the opportunity to have a high school counselor. Remember, this was during COVID, or they didn't have a counselor to ask. They could use this, they could watch the video and it would make sense, because these are all animated or highlighted. This turned into 50 or 60 videos, which was a much bigger project, which is why Oregon State built the eCampus platform for us and so generously share for free, and these tools are all free. This is used side by side with Common App. It is not an application in and of itself. The resources do include financial aid videos. That's sort of a different component, and we have a financial aid expert that comes on board and walks students through that. I'm just going to give you a really quick drop in. You guys can still see my screen okay, correct? Oh, I didn't go into the slideshow. Let me do that. That's so much more professional than seeing all my tabs. Going into, this is what the AXS Companion looks like. This is to work with Common App. And these are the contents. You'll notice everything is similar that you would see in Common App, but I'm going to show you one of the resources that we consider. An example is if we were to go to education, you can see this is all here, but the ones as we know that stump students is, as Michaela was mentioning, activities. I mean, people have a lot of questions about that. They're great directions, but how do you do that? So we walk students through that. Education is one that I'm just going to drop in right now. This is what the landing page looks like. It lets students know, here's where you are in the process of the Common App. Here's what you need to sit down to fill it in best. This is what the landing page looks like on Common App. And then here's a video. This is the video explaining the current high school year. You can see it's got the high school highlighted. We also, this is all in closed caption. So it's easy for students then, or anyone who might have within the deaf community will be able to watch and understand. Then we go into other high schools, because during COVID, I mean, we all know this became very complicated for them to understand. That included an online course, possibly if it wasn't on your transcript. So we go through the explanation of this again. 5 counselors edited this, including a CBO, so that they would really understand that we made these clear for students to understand. Filling in colleges and universities, this is always a little tricky for students to try to understand. What if I did dual enrollment? Well, if I took a summer program, do I need to list it? This walks them through that. And then filling in grades, as well as then courses in grades, current or most recent year, especially for those situations where it's a 2-semester course. How do they fill that in? We cover this. Again, Common App does such a great job of providing a place where they can add all this information and share all that they've done. And we want them to be able to understand when they're doing that. Okay, so that gives you, oh, and by the way, I just missed this. Tips and reminders, we just have a little section on that that's in every part. But this is giving you an idea of what the education portion is like. Again, this is the AXS Companion. It's got here also, it does the My Colleges section. It has a great explanation of FERPA, which, as every high school counselor knows, this will trip them up for so long trying to explain this to students. We edited this a lot to make sure that it said it correctly, but it was pretty firm, letting them know it's a good idea to sign that FERPA release. We also have got English and Spanish section here for the parents. This is answering questions such as if it's in the My Colleges section, it might be a question about residency. They're trying to determine in-state or out-of-state residency. They're not trying to send someone there for something that might have to do with immigration. So we try to make that very clear. Questions about college education, letting them know that that's something that's just important for the colleges to know, just as Common App indicates. Going then, what we realized when we went to ASCA and we met with high school counselors, we realized that they really would love to have an additional tool when working with students, but their problem was how would they implement it? So we put together the AXS Toolbox. This is simply for high school counselors to make their process of counseling students easier, to save them time so that they don't have to do a lesson plan. This is an adaptable lesson plan. We're offering 10, and then we offer one that's for the counselor who has 1 hour. We offer 10, but they're adaptable, and we have directions in how to adapt them. This is what the landing page looks like. Here's the link to the AXS Companion. Here's the link to Common App. Students and teachers need, and counselors need to understand, we are not Common App. We're here just to add as a little bonus, as a trusted source, that we're just here to kind of help them, guide them a little bit along. There are 10 adaptable lesson plans with slides. I'll show this very quickly. Single lesson plan. These are video links by topic, direct video links. And where this would come invaluable for a high school counselor is when they want to share for a student filling in courses and grades, which is so dreadful. They can just send the link to the directions of filling in courses and grades because it's so time consuming. They can just send this to the student and say, please watch this and have it filled in when you meet with me. Have this start to be filled in, and that will be just a huge time saver to everyone. Here's a printable handout for the toolbox and a printable handout for the AXS Companion. This can go in the counselor's office, and here are some student forms as well as resource links. And as we all know, the terms we use are not ones that students are always familiar with, and we have a link here to those terms. So is a quick look at, if we click the 10 adaptable lesson plans, this is what they look like. These are just clicking them. This is getting started. This has nothing to do with Common App. This is for all colleges and all applications. This is just a session that can be, because students need to determine first, are they on Common App? In California, we have that a lot where it's just a UC, a Cal State. Students don't even know that a Common App school that may be more affordable. It may offer the direct major that they want to, for the degree they want to attain. There's really, sometimes that information isn't shared. We want them to know this is available. Common App is a wonderful resource for them to use. So this is the first one. We need to determine where they are. But lessons 2 through 10 are directly for Common App. To get an idea, if one is to click this, it would take you to this page, which is the counselor lesson plans. And these are in detail. Here's the table of contents of what they contain, but then here's the lesson plan already done. Again, at the top, here are the directions to make them, they're completely adaptable. They're free. You can make them into anything you want. You can add one sentence from each one and put it together in your own lesson plan as a counselor. It doesn't matter to us. We have no, that's all good by us. We understand you have to do what you know works best with your students. But if we were to look at lesson plan, let's go to objectives. These are the objectives you might have to present to a principal or to a school district if you wanted to set these up as a lesson plan. Secondly, then here's the actual lesson plan with slides. And if we go to the slides, they're already created, and this would take them through. Here's Common App. Here is open up the checklist, what you need, what a student needs, creating your Common App. This is a little video, and this is the direct link to Common App. So a counselor can actually put on this video how to fill in Common App, how to open an account, and then next show the students, go to Common App, open your account, and then do that in the classroom. So that's the goal, creating a college list, etc. This is a video. And then anything in green with a green background, and this is going over the 5 tabs and how to navigate the AXS Companion. Anything in green with a green background is homework. Anything that's got a blue background is a worksheet. So it's all made available for them to just make this easier so that counselors can, their job is going to be less complicated. Lastly, this is the video link. These are the fantastic, quick, straight video links. You know, you want a student to fill in an activity section, here's the video to watch it. That can be done. Just sending all of that out. In the education section, or FERPA. Any of these can be sent ahead of time. And you can print this, and here's the QR code to this document if you wanted to print it and share it anywhere. So in sort of a final, this is the AXS Companion. Excuse me, that one went ahead. AXS Companion. There's the Toolbox QR code. It's completely free, doesn't track any data. And lastly, just to know, our goal is to support students as they navigate college application process. And the goal of the AXS Toolbox is to support counselors as they guide students through Common App. Here's my email if you would like anything we have. If you're a college counselor, we have these wonderful pop-ups. These say we're on Common App. And then if you want, there's a Common App, there's the AXS Companion QR code. And it's just to help students in California, for example. You see students in a glazed face walk away from a table when they realize it's not on the Cal State application, to look at University of Michigan or to look at Oregon State. They just kind of wander away, and it might be the best fit for them. So I'm so happy to go further in depth in how AXS Companion can support your students when they're using Common App on August 27th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and that should have been on my slide, 1:00 p.m. Eastern time for the presentation that Megan has so generously set up for us. So thank you for your patience, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you. Wow, that was amazing. As someone who hasn't been exposed to that before, just seeing you present it even quickly, I was like, what a phenomenal set of resources. So I know I'm excited to like send it to every high school counselor that I know, because that is so great. So thanks for being here. So now we can have some questions from our audience. So please feel free to share your questions in the Q&A feature that will get sent up to our panelists. You can also feel free to put any reactions you have in the chat. You know, if anything really stuck out with you or something you want to hear them speak about more. But it looks like we did have one question come in already for Michaela. So this first question is, can you talk a little bit about College Advisors' partnership with systems like Naviance? Is there a disadvantage to schools that don't use a system like that?
Great question. So Common App has like quite a few relationships with what we call college and career readiness partners or integration partners, Naviance being one of many of these. And it really was to help to like streamline this process, whether a school was using the Common App rec system or their district uses something like Naviance or C Alpha or Maya Learning, that regardless of the system, that the school forms can be sent to colleges in essentially the same way. And so there's no advantage or disadvantage. It's just really if your school and your district is using one of those partners, they're integrated with Common App to submit school forms to the colleges, really, and exactly the same way we submit school forms through the Common App recommender system. So it really, there's no advantage or disadvantage whether you're using one of those college and career readiness platforms or using our recommender system. That's a great question. And I'll make sure again to share these slides afterwards, and you can see that full list of integration partners if you're curious about that.
All right. Do we have any other questions from anyone here in the audience? I'll give it another minute if you want to put it in the chat or in the Q&A. While we're waiting to see, I thought of one, Michaela, when you were presenting. During the rollover, do students' colleges roll over if they've added them? Like these are the schools I'm interested in. It's just the data in each college that doesn't roll over.
Great question. And yes, that's correct. So any school that a student has added to their college list, that will roll over year to year. It's really the specific questions. Colleges have the ability to edit and update their questions year to year, which is why the information doesn't roll over. They'd also have to recomplete FERPA every year. That's just a federal requirement, re-invite their recommenders. But the actual colleges, that will roll over year to year. And students can get a head start. Like they can go in and look at the questions now, maybe in a Google Doc or a Word doc, start answering those questions because they might stay the same. But just because those questions can be changed every year, we don't roll over that particular information. So anything in the Common App tab, that will roll over. The colleges themselves will roll over. It's just any of the specific questions in the FERPA that won't roll over year to year.
Yeah, go ahead. Mel.
The question that I just want to confirm is with the college list remaining the same and the college tab remaining the Common App tab remaining the same, courses and grades, when it rolls over, that will stay open if a student has filled that in?
I want to double check and confirm this, but my gut says yes, because courses and grades is in the Common App tab. And really anything that's answered in the Common App tab does roll over year to year. I'll double check that, but my gut reaction is that since it's in the Common App tab, it should roll over year to year.
And I believe that was my experience, yet I feel always a little reluctant, like I'm stepping on ice. Like, okay, is that 100? Because that's a lot of work for a student to do and have it roll over and disappear, as we all know. So thank you for I think my face is bright red asking, so thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. So for our attendees still with us on the call, we'll be sending out all of the links and the slides. I just wanted to share a few quick closing announcements, if you will. So here you can see what kind of upcoming events and learning labs we have planned. So we have one last event for this academic year, which we're calling Meet and Mingle Collaboration Hour. We really just wanted to create some opportunities for people to come together and learn from each other, share tips and tricks, maybe vent a little, brainstorm, whatever you need just to be with other people who do this work. So that's coming up in early June, and we'll be sending out the registration link soon. And then, as we shared, we'll be doing more of a deep dive into the AXS Companion and Toolbox resources in August, as well as an opportunity in September to talk a little bit more about retaining rural talent and understanding how we can encourage students to leverage their strengths as students from rural communities, and kind of flipping the script to be about brain gain rather than the phrase we often hear of rural brain drain. So super excited for that session. So continue to monitor our Google group for registrations and updates on that. And then all of our prior learning labs are on our YouTube playlist. You can see some of the ones that we last year or so. So if any of these topics look like an area you'd like more, professional development or training on, feel free to check those out on our YouTube. And then I just wanted to lastly share a few other resources that we have. Kim, do you want to speak at all about the fly-in opportunities?
Sure, we're just trying to gather information about any counselor fly-in programs that people have available. So we kind of want to have a database of that. We've done that in the past, so we want to continue to make sure that everybody has access to that. So colleges were asking if you have information about fly-ins for counselors, please fill out that form and let us know.
And I'll go ahead and share this in the chat as well. And then lastly, we still have that conference attendance spreadsheet. So if you are planning on attending any conferences this year, feel free to fill that out if you want to connect with other SIG members who will be at that conference. And lastly, I think hopefully everyone here is already a member of our SIG, but if you're not, it is completely free. You're not required to be a member of NACAC in order to be a member of our SIG. So please feel free to share this with colleagues if you have other folks who want to join our group. So thanks everyone for being here today, and thank you to our presenters. And I hope everyone has a great afternoon.
Thank you so much for hosting me. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.